Okay, let's go ahead and kick this off. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm John Riley. I'm one of the co-founders of Akkio. Um, Technically the COO, but for this presentation, probably the thing that matters most about my responsibility set is that I lead the product direction here at Akkio. And today I'm going to talk about how ease of use is unlocking the ability to leverage machine learning across your business. And then I'm going to show you some of the ways that we're doing that, and how it just accelerates your ability to get value from your data in a bunch of really easy ways. So let's go ahead and get started. I will attempt to actively answer any written questions as we go. But if you'd like to ask like questions at the end as well, we'll have some time to take those also. So anywhere along the way, feel free to pop in with questions. The team is also here to help answer some of the ones that are in the written Q&A, and we'll just get started. Okay, so it's our thesis here at Akkio, and I think this is becoming increasingly obvious recently that every part of every business is going to run on AI, right? And historically, until quite recently, most of the AI or ML that was going on inside of any business was concentrated in the sort of like critical core business application space. So think like your differentiated competitive edge to the market. And usually there's teams of data scientists working on those like key core competencies of your business. But that leaves like a long tail of analysts and functional business units within your operations, from sales to marketing to customer support, sort of like stuck working in the old way. And so Akkio's goal is to make it incredibly easy for everyone to start leveraging ML in all of their business processes. And we're going to walk you through like exactly what that means. These existing platforms that exist for AI and ML today are pretty much focused on a highly technical user, which means they allow you a fine degree of control. You're able to eke out sort of the top level of performance that you could possibly get from any given model. But they're also kind of centralized. They can't do that many projects. These programs take a long time, and they're kind of sensitive because they're usually aimed at the critical areas of your business. Like I said, think like fraud detection at Stripe, for example, or something like that. Like eking out just a little bit of extra like fraud detection and avoidance is worth millions of dollars, and there's a big team of data scientists probably working on that problem. But there's lots of areas where it doesn't get to. And our thesis here, and I think this is being proven out across a lot of different areas within a business, is that simplicity is really the key to unlocking the value of AI and ML. And just to frame that in some like really specific examples, GPT-3 came out back in 2020, but it wasn't until ChatGPT that it really took off. And that's because once it had a chat interface on top of the generation engine for written content, a lot more people were able to wrap their heads around how to use it and interact with it and achieve what they were looking to do. So ease of use actually broke through and opened up a market for leveraging a large language model for generating written text. And today, if you're writing or creating written content, using ChatGPT or GPT-4 makes you massively more efficient at your job, right? The same thing with like image generation. If you're designing visual assets, Stable Diffusion makes you like massively more effective at creating assets that you can use in your marketing materials or in your content. We're seeing announcements for this like all over the place now as people start to leverage these generated images. And then, if you're like a software engineer, you may be using Copilot to make yourself more efficient at your work. Internally, we've seen a 2x in terms of the amount of quality code that can be written by our engineers leveraging Copilot. That's an efficiency gain that happens like once in a generation in technology. So it's really impactful. These all have like some very similar sort of primitive associated with them if you think about it, which is they're all self-serve, right? Each one of these technologies allows a person working in a functional area of a business to self-serve efficiently the area that they need to accomplish. And what Akkio is building is that, but for data. for people who work with data. And our goal is to give anyone in a business who works with data a massive efficiency gain in their ability to do everything they do with data already, and then extend that into ML modeling so that they can understand what's going to happen, predict future outcomes, and then act on those future outcomes so they can optimize their business before they actually occur. And we'll dig into how that works. But once you can start to leverage machine learning and forecasted outcomes or predicted outcomes, you can do a whole bunch of application enhancements across the long tail of your business operations. And that can be, there's a list of them here on the slide, but it can be everything from, churn prediction to targeting prospects and lead scoring, forecasting, risk analysis, employee retention. There's applications in HR, marketing, sales, customer support, pretty much you name it. Everywhere you have a system underpinned with data in your business, there's an opportunity to leverage a machine learning model or perhaps several machine learning models to be better at making decisions and become more efficient. And of course, when you can become more efficient, you save money and you drive revenue. And those are the two key benefits of using ML. Okay, check on a question. We've got a question on ethics and AI, but I will hold that till the end. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that like Alex at Ellipsis can help his clients' articles rise up in Google searches by understanding like how to best optimize their SEO activity, right? And that means he can take historic data about SEO outcomes and get much better at building an SEO plan, as SEO stands for search engine optimization, if you didn't know, to drive more traffic to his customers' websites. It helps people like Christina, who works in a consumer electronics company, forecast support tickets over time so that she can staff appropriately. And folks like Sterling Strategies, Martin, his job is to help raise money for political candidates. He can better understand the candidate donor match and reach out to the right candidates at the first call, the right donors at the first call who are most likely to donate to a candidate and substantially improve the rate at which they're able to raise money. So, these are the benefits of machine learning that exist today, but spread across the operations of businesses. And that's sort of the key point. So let's take a look at a demo and how Akkio makes that possible. All right, cool. So this is the Akkio platform. If you're not familiar, it's an open platform, so anyone's able to sign up and make an account and play around with it. I encourage you to do so after the call. But let's look at an example for historic conversions. This is a basic lead scoring application, and I'll just start from the data set that we uploaded. This is, as you can see, 4,188 rows across 21 columns. And this is a data set from a bank. I believe it's in South America. And we have a bunch of information about each one of the people who is a customer, an existing customer, I believe, at the bank. And then they've launched a new service. And that new service was test marketed to these 41,000 users, and something like 11% of those customers subscribed. So what we have here is like a classic lead scoring problem. What the marketing person at the bank would like to accomplish is to understand what's driving their outcome of subscribed or not, and then use that understanding of the outcome to sort of look at the people that they haven't marketed to and decide where they should be spending their marketing money and focus and attention so that they're most likely to maximize their return on investment, as well as, of course, understand which of these input drivers here are responsible for the probability that you would subscribe to a service. And we'll look at a couple examples here, but this is the first one. Now, as anyone who works with data knows, something like 60 to 80% of your time is spent preparing the data, cleaning it up, filtering it, adjusting it so you're looking at the right set of data for your analysis. We actually use the latest version of GPT to make that incredibly easy to do. You no longer have to write SQL queries or complicated Excel formulas. You can just use a natural language prompt to ask. So, let's say, we have this age column over here, and you can get a sense of the distribution of that column, like automatically on upload. We'll detect what type of information is in each one of your columns and show you the cross-column correlation. So you can see the biggest correlation column with age is if your marital status. That kind of makes sense, right? Second, your education also kind of makes sense. Remove blue collar workers from the data set, and let's see if that works. Okay, so now it's properly parsed the ask, and we can see that the job column has the value blue collar. Filter those out and return the resulting data frame, and that would remove 29.5% of the data. You can do, like I said, remove all punctuation from the data set, for example. And this will go through the entire data set and remove any punctuation, which I think we'll primarily see here in the education category. It'll take out all of that. And maybe there were some abbreviations and dashes. It was originally blue dash color, and now it's blue color. So pretty much any transformation you wanted to do to the data set is really straightforward to do with a simple natural language ask. And once you've done those transformations or cleaned up any of the outliers that you wanted, the next thing that you probably want to do is understand a little bit of the shape of your data. And that's where our new feature that I'm going to demo you called Chat Explorer comes into play. This Chat Explorer feature lets you ask a natural language question of the data set, and then we'll show you like a graphical answer there that'll be really easy for you to understand. So, let's start with like, show me, let's look at, show me the subscribed per job type. Let's take a look at like, based on the job type that you have, how the subscription worked. And there's the count of subscribed users by job type in the data set, like right there in an easy thing. Let's say we only wanted to, look at the percentage by job. Oh, it didn't change it to a percent. So, this is obviously a beta version, and we're improving it rapidly. But, we can start a new chat and maybe just rephrase that and say, show me by job. Again, like pretty robust to how you ask the question. Percentage of subscribers by job, and then you can save these charts straight over to the report, easy enough. Let's take a look at another couple examples that I think are pretty relevant. This is a property prices data set, just property scraped from the MLS. We can do exactly the same thing here. Click over to explore. This has like, show me 5 key insights from this data set. You can just ask it to show you generic insights from your data set, and it'll parse that and some awareness of the context of the data set and come back with 5 insights. The average price of a house is $540K. The majority of houses in the data set have 3 to 4 bedrooms and 1 to 2 bathrooms. We can get scatter plots like show me the relationship between price and square footage. This will generate like a scatter plot that'll show you a relationship between 2 numerical variables. We could cut that down. These homes are in Washington State, so show me, we can just say just for Seattle, if we'd like, and it'll like narrow that down to only the Seattle region, right? That works too. Again, you can just easily save it to charts or download the images as you make them. Show me unit sales by city. We can make a bar chart of that. Just the top 5 if we want. And then we could also do like pie charts as well. So I think you get the idea here. Pretty much asking any question you want of the data set is really easy, but let's take a look at some of the ways you can actually extend this. How many condos in the data set? Now, this data set does not have the idea of condo in it at all. It thinks there's something like 35 condos in the data set. And if we go back over here and look at the data set, you can see we don't have a column that defines condo anywhere in here. So, that's interesting. How did it come up with the idea that there's 35 condos in the data set? How did you define a condo? You can just ask it. And it'll come back and tell you which conditions it used to filter down to condos. Which units, which homes in this data set are likely to be condos. It properly understands that there's not a house type column that says condo, but it can use the context of GPT to start to take a look at some of the relationships in the data to help you understand where the probable condos might be. Again, like very easy to save any of these charts directly to the report. And that report is actually a live data pipeline. So if you're using a connected data source like Snowflake, each one of these charts will update automatically on the fly for your analysis. So it's really, really easy to leverage them in like downstream analysis. You don't have to remake the chart every time. They're data pipelines. Okay, but let's go back to this lead scoring example, and we'll take it all the way through the finish line. So, the goal here again is to understand and predict whether an arbitrary new user would subscribe. And to do that, we're going to build a machine learning model. And again, that's just as easy as understanding that outcome is a category. So we click predict, and we choose our outcome of interest down here, which is whether or not a user would subscribe to the service, and we just click subscribed. And there you go. This model's been cached. I didn't want to make you watch the 2 minutes it takes to train, but we do the auto ML or machine learning model fit underneath the hood for you. We split the data 80-20. We build the best fitting model in the 80%, and then we validate it against the remaining 20%. And we show you the accuracy details. So 91.2% of the time the model was right. That's not particularly helpful because only 11% of the people in this data set actually ended up subscribing. So if we just guess no for every record, we'd be right 89% of the time. So the important thing over here is when the model thought that they were going to subscribe, they subscribed 64% of the time. That's a 5.7x leverage in the identification of potential subscribers in the data set. And that's where your business leverage is going to come from. And then, of course, we show you what's driving that outcome. So you've got top fields, and you can filter this by positive impact. So you can see duration is the most important variable in the data set. And for high values of duration, they're 13.9, 14% more likely to subscribe. And for low values of duration, they're 7% less likely to subscribe. Turns out duration, I believe, is how long you spent talking about the service on the phone in milliseconds, I believe. So that's maybe a variable you want to remove because you won't have had a phone conversation with these people prior to deciding who to call. So you just pop over here to ignore and then scroll to duration. And you can just pick it and exclude it from the data set duration. And if you just click it, then you can retrain a new model and it will ignore the duration input variable and off you go. But I'm not going to make you watch the model train. We also show you the driving factors on sort of a factor by factor basis. So you can see for the long tail of high durations, 33% of those people ended up subscribing. And that factor occurs about 20% of the time in the data set. We create automatic segmentation for you. Think of these as user personas. Your high duration segment has a higher duration, likely Euribor 3M of 1.365. I guess you'd understand what that meant if you're a banker in a likely month of March. And the low duration ones have a different Euribor 3M value and November. And we show you the sort of various features of those groups that are densified inside of those groups so you can understand exactly the differences here. So conf index, is like minus 41.8 and 16% of the low outcome segment, but it's 11% in the base rate. So you can use that to target your advertising or your marketing. And then maybe most importantly is when we make a prediction about a categorical outcome, we also include a decision threshold or a probability of that outcome. So you can actually move these sliders to think about like where you would set your decision thresholds in your business. Here, if we set it at, say 20%, something like half of the people on the right-hand side of this chart will end up subscribing. So 1 out of every 2 phone calls you make. In the middle, if we set it over here, they'll subscribe at the rate that they currently do. And you could basically ignore any of the records with like a 2% or less chance of subscribing. and you'd lose almost none of your customers. And you can see that that represents about 42% of your data. So if you were running a call center outbounding to offer the service to these people, you could cut the number of people you have to call in half, or maybe even like down to something like 20%. And you'd get, 1 out of every 2 phone calls would likely be a subscriber. So that's a lot of leverage in your business in terms of where to start calling. Lets you get really efficient with your marketing spend. And then at the bottom, we show you sample rows. And finally, when you want to use this in real-time decision-making, you can, of course, just deploy this model easily in the cloud in a couple of clicks. You can call it in real time with an API. But if you're using a connected data source like Snowflake or BigQuery or Google Sheets, you can set it to run predictions automatically as new leads pop up into those applications. I will just get it all the way across the finish line with a web app demo here, which is a live web endpoint for the model we just made. And you can come in here to this web endpoint and you can very easily pick a couple of values, from the data set about these folks. We'll put in a low duration number here. We'll pick some random version of Europe or 3M and we can hit predict. And we will generate a prediction. We don't think this person will subscribe. And we think the probability that there'll be a no is 84.1%. And of course, if we increase duration, as we saw, since that was the main driver, we would expect to see the probability of subscription go up. If you spent 1,000 milliseconds talking on the phone, your probability of subscription goes up pretty substantially. You'll notice we're robust to messy and missing data. And we make it like really easy for you to like sort of leverage the model. You could also just drag and drop a CSV here and you'd be good to go. Okay, so that's the basics here. Hang on, let me try and move my video so I can close this. And I see that we have like a few questions coming in. So let's take a look at some questions and then maybe we can look at some more models if it's appropriate. So popping over to questions. One of them is, can you manually modify the charts once you've used Chat Explorer? I'm going to answer that one live. The answer is you can do it on the reports page, or you can just edit the text of the chart. I don't know that we've pushed that feature yet, but yes, you can pop in and modify that chart again with a chat interaction, and that chart will just be updated automatically, and it will be good to go. Okay, a second request is, do I have to name my next child after you in order to get access to the Explore function immediately? I will. You can just sign up and we have a preview of it live for folks. If you use your email from the webinar, I think it'll be available to you right now. Please go ahead and try it out and make sure to send me personally any feedback you have on the function. We're rapidly improving it. It's sort of in an early beta state. As you saw, some of the answers didn't work out exactly as well as we'd like. So there's still some work going on under the hood to make it better and more performant. But in my experience so far, it's really, really great and tends to work out pretty well. So go ahead and sign up and make an account and give it a try. Okay, let's look at some of these other questions really quickly. On the filtering transforms, why did you choose not to show the query code itself and instead only the results of it applied behind the scenes? That's a great question. Actually, we're going to build a feature that lets you see the code that was generated itself. But most of our target users won't really be able to parse that. So what we do instead is we show you a preview of the transform data set. And we take the code that we generated with GPT and we actually send it back to GPT and we ask it to verbosely describe what that code did. And that's where you get the description over there on the right, remove telephone from the data set. And so like that's a pretty underspecified natural language ask. When we return a more detailed like parse of that ask, we get that by asking it to, and I guess that wasn't a particularly good one because it was like pretty straightforward. But if you ask for a complex thing, we will return that complex interpretation and you can clone it back over into the thing. But we are going to have a feature where all of the transforms you've applied up top, you can generate a PDF or possibly a dedicated web page that actually shows all of the code that's run for each one of the transforms. So for the people who are technical enough, they'll be able to dive in and take a look. It's just not shipped yet. So that's the answer. Hopefully that helps. Okay, another question. With data coming in from SaaS tools like Salesforce, you may know the semantic meaning of different fields or the importance of them generally across multiple customer built models, predicting the same outcome. Have you guys figured out how to leverage this fact at all or similarly, which fields are likely to be target leakage. So we have a pretty strict policy in place where we will not sort of like commingle customer data, right? We learn only from your data and build models only for your data, and we do not like in any way cross-populate that with other systems. But when we're connected to a platform which has a discrete structure to it, we are able to have some intelligence about that structure. So for example, if you're connected to Salesforce, we'll know like basically what a contact is, right? And we'll be able to understand the context of the fact that you're using context from Salesforce to parse your requests with more accuracy. How do we identify which fields like that duration field are likely to be target leakage? Well, if you have a high enough probability or driving factor in the data set, we flag it. If you ever build an ML model and your accuracy is 100%, you have a problem. You've included a discrete linkage between an input variable and your answer, and we will flag that for you and suggest that you remove it. And then secondly, we surface those top fields to try and make it really easy for the subject matter expert to understand, which of these are likely leakage. Like if for here I see duration, yeah, I'm going to think, oh, what is duration? Why is that so important? Well, okay, it must be how long they spent on the phone. And then the question is, did I have that information available to me at the time that I was making the prediction or not? If the answer is no, you should remove it. Hopefully that answers the question. Okay. Another question came in about our native integrations. When you add a new data source, you can see we have integrations with Salesforce, Snowflake, Google Sheets, BigQuery, and HubSpot. We're building more integrations all the time. On the deployment side, everything that I've shown you in the user experience here can also be accomplished via API. You can do all of this programmatically as well. And you can also leverage things like Zapier, which is a, if this then that tool that integrates with a whole bunch of other different platforms to link us into any source that you'd like. Okay, let's see. AI questions must always be in the English language. What about the data set columns and data? Actually, it's fairly robust to non-English language. Our modeling today only uses English Latin characters, but we're working on improving that over time. But you can ask like translation questions and modification questions in say Spanish or any other language that you want. I think you'll see that GPT is capable of parsing them. And because we hand like some of the column titles across, it also works. So I encourage you to play around and see how that works. It's really straightforward. Okay, what's the current user base of technical versus non-technical users? It's actually sort of a pretty broad range of users that we have in the platform, all the way from a subject matter expert working in a business function who is lightly able to work with data and usually asks an analyst to support them, to data engineers using us to build like high volume models in Snowflake. We're designed to scale down and up. Our target user, though, is somebody who understands working with data, has an idea of like what the data they're working with means, so it's closer to the subject matter that they're evaluating, but is more of an Excel user and less of a data scientist, right? We're not exposing all the controls that a data scientist might want if they were trying to tweak a whole bunch of different input things that they might do. We try and abstract all of that complexity to make it incredibly easy for everyone on the usage side. Okay, let's see. Can we detect patterns in the data? Yeah, of course. So as soon as you pick an outcome of interest, which you do in that predict step, we will automatically detect the patterns in your data that are driving that outcome. And then you can tell how predictive those patterns are of the outcome by looking at how well the model performed at predicting the withheld portion of the data set. So that insights report that we generate you when you train a model is intended to make it really easy to see the patterns in your data, however those patterns are in there. And those insight reports are contextual to your problem. So we give you a different insights report if you're predicting a numeric outcome, a categorical outcome, or if you're doing like a time-driven forecast, then you get time-driven insights, or we show you the time-driven patterns in your data, like seasonality and driving factors that lag your key outcome in time and what's changed with them in the past and how we expect that's going to impact your outcome in the future. Okay. Next, current customer. In certain cases, I need to hide the Akkio brand logo. Can I insert my marketing logo when needed? Great question. So that reports tab that I showed you, and let me just pop back here really quickly and show you. We're gonna, I picked the wrong table here. Let's, sorry, I have the Q&A thing up. Let's look at property prices again. And I'll give you just a little bit of a hint preview on where this is going. So, I made a chart. I put the chart over here in the report. This report is going to become shareable. It will have a dedicated web page associated with it. You will be able to remove the Akkio branding as a paying customer from that report. You'll be able to add any chart or any piece of like visual information from like an insight report or an aggregation, right? A data upload or chat explore directly into the report and order those however you like. And then you will be able to put your logo in instead, if you like, on the setup of this page. And then your like shareable version of the report will be packaged up really nicely as if you'd made it, because we look at that as like your work product. We don't feel the need to own that reporting infrastructure. That's something that's between you and wherever you want to use it in your business. That's not built quite yet, but it's coming. Today, the insights report that goes with the model is shareable, and there's an option in there to remove the Akkio branding from it as well for paying customers. Okay, let's see. In some cases, AutoML is not that effective when compared to some specific algorithms, say for like a small data set. We try a whole bunch of different AutoML and even just like straight linear regression solutions when we run it. We've tried to make this robust to small as well as large data sets. I'd encourage you to try it out. If you have an algorithm or an alternative approach that you feel is better for a particular class of things that we don't currently do, we are wildly open to adding that to our ML engine. Our intent is to find you the best possible way of modeling your data without you having to decide what that way is. We want to search for that across the possible ways of modeling the outcomes, find the best performing one, and surface that directly to you. So we're always adding algorithms to the underlying ML engine and making it easy for you to leverage them. Okay, and then one more question is, which model did we decide to use? And actually, when you train a model, and I'll just show you here on the sort of housing prices, I believe this model is cached here as well. You can drill down into accuracy details. This is maybe like a fast model, but if you go into advanced model details, we picked a clamped Akkio baseline. We show you that versus a decision tree. If you do a longer training mode, we'll show you like the 5 or 6 different models that were in the top performing tier, as well as the individual specific one we picked. So if you know what you're talking about, you can always drill in and see which model won out in the AutoML engine. Easy enough. Okay, can you build a history of the inquiries and access them? Is there a way to run different scenarios and have the chatbot pick the optimum answer solution? Okay, so I'll answer this one, and then the ethics question is up, and I'll answer that one next. Yes, you can, as you like add additional transforms to your data set, we save them. And if you have a chat inquiry or an explore thing, you save it to the report, and that will contain the history of that exploration question, and you'll access them on that reports page. And you can eventually make multiple versions of the report or pull from different reports if you need to. We also are building some scenario modeling tools where you can come in here and optimize your outcome. You can lock down the fields that you have control over, and you can sort of unlock the fields that you do not have control over. Okay, and then the last question here is about ethics and AI. And this is a general topic that's covered in, I think, a lot of detail in a lot of these large language models. But specific to Akkio, it's kind of interesting because we are only working on the data set that you provide us, right? Your unique business differentiated advantage is the data that you have that no one else has. And when you think about something like GPT, it's trained on what I would call the world of information, all sorts of information from the internet. And everyone now has access to that same capability. That means that's sort of a level playing field. And where businesses are going to have differentiated advantages is in their own data. And so this question in the context of Akkio is very specific to what are the ethics of working with ML models within my business data? And that's no different than what are the ethics of business decision-making that you do today, as long as you can surface the driving factors associated with your outcome. So if we were talking about that lead scoring case, maybe it's unethical to discriminate based on age. Like, let's say instead of scoring leads, we were trying to figure out how good of an employee someone might be for the company. There's already a bunch of regulation around what you can take into account when applying models to your decision making or just decision making in those areas. But it really comes down to the individual subject matter expert who's working with the data to make sure that they're doing the right thing, right? And that's the case with any tool, even Excel, right? If you're using Excel to create a linear regression to make a decision in a business, it's imperative that the operator understand what's driving the outcome and make sure that it's doing it in an ethical and moral way, right? And that doesn't change. Like any piece of technology, it has the potential to be used for good and the potential to be used for not good. Particularly in the areas of businesses, many of these are already highly regulated. So we have this insights report. We're also working on a more detailed breakdown of driving factors and decision-making for the models that you can use in your regulatory evaluation to make sure that you're not crossing any lines. But even beyond that, I think it's imperative that all of us individually understand how the models are making their decisions and make sure that we're relying on the right set of input criteria so that we're operating ethically. And that comes down to the subject matter expertise. Because we're building a platform, we really don't know what you're using the platform for. And so I encourage everyone to understand the driving factors and make sure that you're behaving within your regulatory framework as well as acting ethically. I hope that answers the question, Adam, but if you have a follow-on, you're free to go. Okay, last question. I work in a marketing company. I'm interested in understanding how the company you mentioned in the slides is using it for SEO. We'd be happy to get together with you. The way our process works here is you can either sign up directly in the platform and try it out yourself, or we have solutions engineering team who will help do a proof of concept. I'd suggest if you'd like that you fill out a request for a demo. We'll reach out and set up a meeting, and we'll not only walk you through how a company is using it for SEO, but we'll be able to help build a example proof of concept with your data so you can exactly prove the business value that you get with Akkio. Our philosophy here is that if we're not giving you value, we don't want you to be paying. That's why we're set up as a month-to-month sort of engagement. And our goal is to get you quickly to a positive ROI from any engagement with us. We find once customers have that, they're able to use it in hundreds of additional applications in their business, and the ROI just goes off the charts. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit for machine learning in most businesses today. Okay, great. I think that's most of the questions. So I will now wrap up the webinar. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. As I said, the features that I've shown you today are either available now or in a beta form and will be available soon. So I'd encourage everyone to play around with the platform and feel free to send me feedback. We're always trying to make it better and faster. Thank you very much.